the history of Drupal and the history of Drupal in the European Commission. I'll start with my history. I do have a long history with Drupal. I was fortunate enough to spend the majority of my career working in Drupal, working either as an architect or managing teams of developers or architects. In the last years, I've been an external consultant in the European Commission at Digit, where I work in one of the core teams, which is the OPP team. I'll talk a bit more about it in this presentation. So we'll cover 3 points. We'll try to understand why Drupal became a standard in the European Commission, how it evolved over the last 14, 15 years in the European Commission, and finally I'll describe a bit about our practice and about our contribution to Drupal. So let's go back in time. Back in 2010, we can see the first Drupal 6 websites in the European Commission. In the next years, Drupal presence grew in numbers and in complexity of the sites that were using Drupal. And back in 2013, the Commission made a decision to standardize its corporate websites in Drupal. So that's when a project was born, which was called Next Europa. It was the first Drupal distribution built by the Commission. Back in the day, 11 years ago, multi-site was something really cool to do. So there was a Drupal site, a Drupal multi-site distribution supporting, in the end of the project, about 160 websites. And back also in 2013, we started seeing the first contributions from people working in the Commission to Drupal.org and to GitHub. Then Drupal 8 came, and as any other user of Drupal, the Commission had to migrate their sites to Drupal 8. This time, we decided to do a different approach. So we were not happy anymore with the multi-site approach. We're not happy about the fact that we're controlling majority of our functionality in the single code base. So we tried to decouple as much as we could and isolate as much as we could from the main platform into smaller components, isolated components that we can maintain separately, we can test separately, and still be used across all the range of the websites that we support internally and for other European Union institutions. That's when the Open Europa project born, and I'll talk a bit about it in the presentation. At the same time, we renamed our distribution to EWPP, which stands for Europa Web Publishing Platform. And that platform, built back in 2018 in Drupal 8, evolved with numbers over time to about 180 websites that we support right now. And since then, we had a way smoother migration path from Drupal 8, then to Drupal 9, all the minor versions of Drupal 9, to all the minor versions of Drupal 10, and hopefully soon we'll start in Drupal 11. So today, the European Commission, and these were numbers from last week, we host about 280 Drupal websites in production, and we do have a few more currently in development, in the making. The majority of these websites, they run from the same code base. So this is Europa Web Publishing Platform, which you maintain as a product. So it's a Drupal distribution, but it's not anymore a multi-site, or it's not anymore hosted as a multi-site. They live on their own instances. We manage them as a fleet of websites, but controlled from the same code base. So that saves time on development, testing, maintaining. All those benefits are there, even if it's not a multi-site. In the main platform website, we do receive about 10 to 15 million visitors a month, which accounts for roughly 40 million page views per month. So where can we find Drupal in the Commission? Well, the two more shining examples are the website of the European Union, so europa.eu or europeanunion.europa.eu, and the commission.europa.eu. Those are the most visible example of communication websites, but there are plenty of others that share the same goals and the same platform. We can also find it in other sites that are not on the same platform, but contributed to the platform. They use most of the components that are common to the websites. For instance, JoinUp, or now Interoperable with Europe. It's a portal showcasing thousands of interoperability solutions to public administrations created by the countries of the European Union. So it's a catalog of software. It was one of the first projects that the Commission had in Drupal 8. Or EMA, which is the European Medicine Agency. Both are examples of sites that are standalone, not part of the main distribution, but still use parts of the components. The Commission also hosts and handles interactive websites. So, for instance, the European School Education Platform, it's the meeting point for the school education community. This website has about 1 million registered users, and every day there's an average of 10,000 of them that log and interact on the website. This was originally launched in 2022 and then evolved to originally in Drupal 8 and then evolved to Drupal 10. So this of course, it's a site that has a complete different need in terms of performance and a complete different requirements in terms of how you host it. So no matter what architecture, no matter if it was Drupal 6, Drupal 7, Drupal 8, 9, 10, no matter how it was hosted, no matter what was the usage, Drupal excelled mainly by its capabilities from the beginning. So the ability to define who can edit, approve, and publish, and when content can be released is something fundamental for an organization like the European Commission. So Drupal content governance and workflow, it's a mandatory feature that the Commission uses. Whenever there's a need to publish content, the Commission aims to do it in the 24 official languages of the European Union. So the multilingual capabilities were very important in Drupal. As you can imagine, most of these sites are highly visible governmental websites, which can peak high numbers in terms of traffic whenever there is an important event or information released. So security and performance, key features from Drupal that helped the Commission pick it. The ability to reuse content created by, functionality created by others that is not part of core, but is there on contributed models. It's an important reason why Drupal keeps being used. Also the ability for teams like mine to set up components and standards that can be reused across other teams. It's an important aspect. The extensibility factor of Drupal is very important here. Of course, the ease of integration with internal and external Commission tools. And last but not least, Drupal fits very well with the Commission mandate to reuse as much as possible of open source and contribute as much as possible to open source. And also on top of that, Drupal is one of the most open communities, so it was always easier for the Commission to find resources to work on their projects and their teams and grew them over time. I'll go now about the more technical aspects. So I've been describing here the majority of the sites are almost all the same Drupal, which is true. So about 190 websites are work from the same code base, which we maintain as a product. We have a fixed release cycle, and whenever we release a functionality, we made it available for all these websites. Other websites are not based on this platform, but they still rely on some of the components that are common to all of them. So this enables cross-team collaboration. If there's a component or a feature required by any team, we try to make it as a component and as a reusable component so that can be used somewhere else. It was not imagined originally on the original project. Each component has its own release cycle. This is a major benefit, which is projects don't depend on each other. They just depend on the release cycle of the component, as any Drupal model doesn't depend on core. And when possible, and when we understand that we have a need that is common to the Drupal community and others might have, we prefer to just develop and release directly what we do directly on Drupal.org, or help others that are doing models that are similar to what we need. Some examples of our contributions from the last years. In Drupal.org, you can find things like Media AV Portal. So it's a media source that integrates with the European Commission AD Visual Portal and allows to import videos and images. Models like Daytime Time Zone that allows you to define a date associated with a time zone. Models like Entity Meta Relation that allows you to define meta information about your content that you don't want to store in your content entity. Entity version that allows you to define minor and major versions of your content and then act upon on your workflow, depending if you are managing a minor or a major version of your content. RDF entity, this one is pretty cool, interacts directly with RDF storage and reads entities directly from there. Or models more related with security, like user deactivation date, that automatically purge users that have been inactive for a while. Some other times we have components and we understand that they are usable in the context of the commission, but they are less usable, or they are less important for others in the Drupal community. So we release them under the Open Europa organization in GitHub. And there you can find things like our content types, our paragraphs, our theme, our authentication model, the way that we use to build lists. And then some components are subcomponents of others, like our code review component, for instance, is used by all of our components and is maintained itself as its own. As you can imagine, to support that, we need a large team. So the European Commission has a large team of people working in Drupal. In Digit, there's about 80 Drupal consultants, and across the European Commission and the different European agencies, that accounts for more than 130 people. Of course, here you find all sorts of resources from developers, business analysts, designers, DevOps, support. And if you look to our organization page in Drupal.org, you can actually find about 90 users that are associated with the commission, either that worked in the past in commission projects or that currently do. About our practice and about principles that we try to stand in all of our development teams. So we prefer to contribute to existing solutions before reinventing the wheel. That means that if there's a model that almost does what we want but misses a few things, we prefer to contribute it directly there. If there are tests missing, we prefer to write those tests and put it directly in the model and rely on the model instead of writing it ourselves. We aim for reusability. That means that whenever there is a requirement coming from an architectural perspective and we need to define what we are going to do, we prefer to do it in a way that will be extensible and will be usable by others without changing the original component. That means thinking about configuration, thinking about plugin systems, thinking about ways that other developers can use and extend what was originally fostered for that component. We aim for 100% automatic test coverage, even if this means that it takes us as much time to write the functionality or the feature than it takes to write the tests. In the long run, that's the only way that we have to guarantee that that functionality will not break when we touch it again, when we change the requirements, when we upgrade it. This guarantees us one of the minor regression rates of bugs that I've seen in production, because we typically catch these bugs right away when we are developing it. On top of that, we still have several gates of manual testing. Testers and humans typically catch things that developers didn't think about when they were writing the tests, so that's always useful. Whenever we catch a bug like this, we typically write an automatic test afterwards for it. We do have a very standard double technical review process for these kind of projects. So one developer does the ticket, another one or another two review them at least before it's merged into the development branch. And we hope to have a policy of loosely coupling our dependencies in Composer.json from our distribution. This means something very simple. Whenever there is an update on contrib model or core, we are typically one of the first people in the world to be affected by it, because we catch it right away the next time that the tests run. And that allows us to ship in and sometimes help as much as possible to have that problem fixed upstream and not only for us in a patch or something like that. We also need to have tools and platform to support us to manage this fleet of websites. So we do have a centralized tool chain that every developer uses, and this guarantees coherency between development environments. We do have an application called Toolkit that guarantees that standards and best practices are maintained whenever code is being pushed to a certain environment. So there is a checklist that is checked automatically whenever there is a deployment going on, and we can catch if there is a problem in an outdated model or something that has been not following coding standards, for instance, these kind of things. We do have the ability to create ephemeral environments for any of the sites of the fleet. Even if the code is always the same, the sites can differ in configuration. So sometimes it's important to test them on their real instance. And then we do have centralized processes to, of course, deploy once across the 180 sites and control them through a central dashboard. This year, we created a new initiative to further enlarge our community. So we created a community of practice inside the European Commission dedicated to Drupal, which basically has two goals. First, guarantee that we foster knowledge inside the different Drupal teams, and we do this in different ways. Expert talks, we created Q&A sessions where people can ask questions from their Drupal projects to other developers in the Commission. Sharing of best practices and hackathons. We will have our first hackathon next month about AI on Drupal. If you are interested more in this topic, I invite you to follow us on our website for the community of practice, and we do also have a LinkedIn group, so you can follow what has been publicly published. And finally, about our contribution back to Drupal. So we try to adopt a contribute first mindset. Public money should mean public code, and that's something that we remember every morning when we turn our computer. So you can find active contributions to Drupal core and to Drupal contrib models in our organization page in Drupal. We do actively maintain right now about 83 models in Drupal.org, and a few dozen more are present in the GitHub organization. And according to DrupalContributions.org, I don't know if people know about this website, but it's a project that basically ranks Drupal credits and that were assigned to individuals and organizations in Drupal.org. If you look to the rank, the European Commission right now ranks as number 45 as in the history of contributions to Drupal that were credited to an organization. But if you actually look to the list and exclude and just include the ones that are end users of Drupal, so agencies and service providers that are not that are creating services for Drupal, not including this list, but just end users, the European Commission is actually the number 3 organization in the world that ever contributed to Drupal. And if you look to the most recent history, actually, so if you look to the last 3 months, the European Commission is actually the active end user that is contributing more to Drupal in the last 3 months, about 56 issues that were credited to people working in the European Commission. So I don't think there's a better way to finish this history and this story. So with that, I thank you in all the official languages of the European Union, and I think we still have some time for questions. There's one question there. There's a question there? Can you read it?
Are you connected with some of the other initiatives like the Gov or local Gov, or that also seems to do some governmental distributions?
We are aware, but we are not connected in any way. What was it? Can you read?
So while doing 100% automatic test coverage, do you mean test-driven development way or creating unit tests along the code?
It really depends on the developer. We don't really have a test-driven development methodology, but we guarantee that every functionality that we introduce as a test to cover it. That means, and there was a session yesterday by my colleague Adam that explained a bit more about our testing methodology, but we basically use either in the components, we basically use functional tests and unit tests, and on the distribution, we still have a bit of BHAT, and over time, we migrated to existing site test rates, which is a project from Mosh Witzman. I don't know if everyone is aware of it, but basically allows you to run all of your suite of tests in PHP unit in an instance that is installed from Drupal. So we work against what is active. We install the site and we run all of our testing suites or we upgrade the site and we run off our testing suite. So you have an idea, it takes about 40 minutes to run the whole testing suite, so you have an idea of how many tests we do have covering the platform. 40. It was 1 hour, like a month ago. Well, thank you.